Internet penetration on the African continent is relatively low when compared to the developed world, of course, currently standing at around 120 million users. However, the growth rate of internet users over the past decade in Africa was well above the world average of 480%, coming in well above 2,000%. So where has the growth been most pronounced? Earlier, I caught up with Birgitta Cederstrom, ICT Business Unit Leader for Africa at Frost Sullivan.
The countries that we experience growth right now are the more mature markets in Africa, such as South Africa, Kenya, Nigeria, even Ghana, and in North Africa, Egypt, Morocco, and so on. But what we experience since now with all the undersea cables and the terrestrial fiber rollout, in addition with the satellites influx we have over Africa, we expect to see close to double-digit growth in the more mature markets over the next 2 to 3 years. And this is really boosted by what's happening right now with the connectivity around Africa as a whole.
Now, the continent, of course, with its growing middle-class, burgeoning businesses, really hungry for IT infrastructure at this point in time. The infrastructure is the key to growth of ICT on the continent. Give us an idea of the type of progress we're expecting with regards to new undersea cables in 2012, and of course, the key is also the terrestrial infrastructure around this.
Correct. What we have experienced is now that over the past 5 years, we have seen that East Africa has been connected with the CCOM cables going around East Africa and boosting that region. Now, the 2011 and the next 2 years, we are seeing the WACS and other initiatives going up, connecting West Africa. So the international influx of bandwidth are 4 digits over the next year. And with that infrastructure and the connectivity boosting broadband and connectivity, we're obviously going to see an influx of not only for consumers and higher demand and use for broadband, but also for enterprises. So where you can see that the connectivity are boosting, we also see that businesses are boosting. As example, data centers. Data centers are a huge business in Africa currently, and we predict that we're going to see an influx of international data centers and operators setting up data centers in Africa as a whole. But you also have the BPO and the contact centers business, which is a big business for Africa as a whole. And those kind of initiatives will drive, hopefully, more business, more work for people in Africa, and also for investors to get return of investment.
Prices, of course, is a major prohibitive factor still on the continent. What type of trends are we expecting with regards to prices coming down in 2012?
Well, I think we saw in Kenya, for instance, and in South Africa last year, in 2011, a huge reduction of prices of, if we say, voice and data. And that was very driven by the regulators in Kenya and also in South Africa, ICASA. And price wars between the operators started last year, and we're going to see for 2012 a further reduction of prices, spurring usage of data and data services. So companies and consumers are going to increase 2012 the usage of data services. So if you look at South Africa, for instance, we had data services around 28% in 2011, and we believe that in the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to see an influx up to 60% of data services. So there is a real true demand from both enterprises and consumers to collaborate. And that is a big trend for 2012. Work smarter, if that makes sense.
As you say, that smart word crops up in 2012. Your Frost Sullivan report calls 2012 the smart year. How does this label apply to Africa?
Well, I think it's all around working smarter in a global, very tough economic situation. And we do feel it in Africa as well. Although in Africa we are part of the BRICS, and it's an investment haven, and we have a huge demand for business and as a whole. I think smart technology, and I talk very much around green technology. So we try to look at renewable energies and renewable technologies. Energy as a whole are getting more and more pricey, and with that, companies and consumers are looking at new ways working smarter with technology. We can see in data centers, for instance, in 2012, an adoption rate for cooling technologies to reduce cost in the data centers that are using lots of energy. We can see that the carriers are using more solar and wind power, reducing costs. So it's all around thinking of how to work smarter and utilize the technology.
And of course, many are wondering when in South Africa and when in Africa we're going to see smart TVs in our lounges. What is the progress we're likely to see in 2012 with regards to that?
Well, we had hoped at Frost Sullivan that it would happen to the World Cup last year already. Unfortunately, it didn't. But the IPTV is a global trend, and it should already be in Africa, and we hope that in 2012, this year, we're going to see an influx of IPTV. The carriers are ready. We can see that Safaricom in Kenya have already launched IPTV, and we hope in South Africa, in other mature markets, we can see IPTV. That is the way to go, and the consumers are really waiting for IPTV going forward.